I stood in that church, legal papers clenched in my trembling hands, while my sister screamed at her own daughter's baptism. Every eye was on us, and I felt a mix of disbelief, anger, and satisfaction all at once. But to understand how I ended up holding the power to become my niece's legal guardian, you need to hear about the $49,000 I spent, the recording I made, and how it all led to the most dramatic day of my life. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Comment if you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or had to fight for what's right. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about justice served in a way you won't forget. I need to start at the beginning. My sister, let's call her Laura, was always the perfect one in our family. Outgoing, charismatic, everyone's favorite. Me, I was quieter, less flashy. Hardworking, yes, but somehow always overshadowed. She had a way of making herself the center of attention, and unfortunately, that included manipulating situations to her advantage. When her daughter, Emily, was born, I was overjoyed. I loved my niece like she was my own, but early on, I noticed things, little red flags that hinted Laura wasn't as nurturing as she pretended. She was controlling, dismissive, and at times outright cruel to Emily. I remember one incident vividly. Emily was crying because she was scared of thunder during a storm, and Laura snapped, "Stop crying, you're fine," as if the fear itself was a crime. At first, I told myself it wasn't my business, but things escalated. One day, Laura left Emily at my place for what she called a short errand, and Emily clung to me, begging not to go back. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't sit back anymore. My niece deserved a guardian who actually cared, and I wasn't going to let my sister's ego and recklessness endanger her. The first step was gathering evidence. I had to document everything: neglect, emotional abuse, irresponsibility. I spent countless nights setting up recordings, tracking behavior, and even consulting child welfare experts. By the time I had my case, I had invested nearly $49,000 in legal fees, consultations, and evidence collection. It was exhausting, expensive, and emotionally draining, but I knew it was worth it. Meanwhile, Laura remained completely oblivious, or pretended to be. She would brag to family members about how wonderful a mother she was, and everyone would nod politely. Only I knew the truth, and I had proof. The turning point came one evening when Laura did something that finally pushed me over the edge. Emily had a minor accident at home, a small cut on her hand, and instead of comforting her, Laura berated her for being clumsy and stormed out, leaving Emily in tears. I quietly recorded the entire exchange. Her voice, her words, her complete lack of empathy, it was all there. The recording would become the linchpin of my case. Fast forward a few months. I had filed for guardianship, citing emotional neglect and irresponsibility. Laura predictably fought back. She claimed I was overstepping, trying to steal her daughter. Our first mediation sessions were brutal. She laughed, mocked me, called me paranoid. Each session felt like a battlefield, every word an attack. But I had something she didn't: irrefutable evidence. The days leading up to the baptism were tense. I had prepared everything legally. I had the papers notarized, my lawyer ready, and a copy of the recording securely stored. I knew exactly what I was going to do, but part of me couldn't help feeling nervous. This wasn't just about me, it was about Emily's life and well-being. And then the day arrived. I walked into the church for the baptism, and Laura was already there, glowing with pride, dressed immaculately, chatting with family and friends. Emily was clutching her tiny hands together, looking angelic in her white dress. I felt my chest tighten, balancing between love for my niece and the need for justice. And then it happened. Laura's temper flared over something trivial. Someone bumped into her, spilled a drink, and she exploded, screaming, cursing, berating anyone who looked at her wrong. But it wasn't just anger. It was a terrifying display of instability in front of family, friends, and more importantly, Emily. The room fell silent. People were staring, frozen, unsure whether to intervene. And in that moment, I stepped forward. I held up the legal papers. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Laura, you need to read these. This concerns Emily." Her face went pale, confused. She grabbed the papers, but I didn't give her a chance to react. I calmly told the priest, the witnesses, and the family, "This is a court order temporarily granting guardianship to me until this matter is resolved." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then came the screams, my sister's screams, filled with anger, disbelief, and humiliation. But I stayed calm. I had spent months preparing for this moment, and I knew I was in the right. I let her yell, let her throw tantrums, while the priest and family simply looked on. The aftermath was chaotic. Laura called my phone nonstop, threatening, pleading, crying, but I remained firm. Every conversation was documented. Every interaction reinforced the legal case I had painstakingly built. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't taking Emily away out of spite. I was protecting her from a mother who, despite good intentions at times, had consistently shown she couldn't prioritize her child's well-being. In the courtroom, the recording became the final nail in the coffin. Hearing Laura's own voice, yelling, berating, and neglecting Emily, The judge had no choice but to rule in my favor. Temporary guardianship became permanent. I finally had legal authority to protect Emily, make decisions for her safety, and provide the stability she needed. I won't lie, the emotional release was immense. I felt vindicated, yes, but more importantly, I felt responsible for creating a safe, nurturing environment for Emily. Seeing her smile, knowing she could be a child without fear, without neglect, was the true reward. What's remarkable is how quickly family dynamics shifted. People who had been blind to Laura's behavior finally saw it clearly. My quiet, overshadowed role suddenly became the heroic one. And Laura, she's no longer the center of attention, but she has no legitimate claim to. Emily, she's faced consequences for her actions, in a way that feels both just and proportional. Through this experience, I learned some hard truths. Love for a child means stepping up, even when it's uncomfortable or socially awkward. Justice isn't about revenge, it's about ensuring fairness and protection. For those who can't defend themselves, patience, preparation, and evidence are more powerful than anger alone. The most satisfying moment came during Emily's first birthday after I became her guardian. Laura was invited, but her presence was subdued. She couldn't manipulate, couldn't dominate, couldn't scream or control the narrative. Emily laughed, played, and thrived in a space where she felt safe. Watching my niece beam with joy was the ultimate victory. Not for me, not for ego, but for her. And somewhere deep down, I knew Laura's moment of public humiliation at the baptism was poetic justice. In its purest form, life has a way of testing us. It's not always about grand gestures, it's about showing up when it matters most. Standing firm for those who can't. Protecting Emily wasn't easy, but it was worth every sleepless night, every dollar spent, every ounce of effort. Justice, when earned and executed with integrity, is profoundly satisfying. If this story gave you chills, or reminded you of standing up for what's right, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-life stories of betrayal, justice, and ultimate triumph. Share in the comments. Have you ever witnessed a moment of poetic justice that left you speechless? Let's talk about it.